Today on the show, we have the Electric Sound Collective, a band from New York City. Here is a preview of today's episode.
We play for peace very intentionally. We play for peace, to not only play for peace, but to create peace within ourselves. Because if we're at peace, then the frequency that we push out is just automatically going to be of peace.
I first heard about Electric Sound Collective while walking in Washington Square Park in New York City. And I heard their music, and it was this sound filled with, a mixture of jazz, Latin rhythms. And it just drew me closer to learning more about their story. And we are also going to play a bit of their music on the show today. So who is the Electric Sound Collective?
Larry on Ross, like Larry on. I've been playing with Electric Sound Collective for about a year and a few months, and I live in the countryside of Queens, New York.
Peace. My name is Manifest the Artist. I go by Manifest, and I'm from Brooklyn, originally from Puerto Rico, from Brooklyn, New York. Year and some change as well. And yeah.
My name is Jonathan Mercado, and I play drums, and I'm from Puerto Rico, but then I was born in New York.
With ESC.
Well, like 4 months. Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about your cultural backgrounds? I know some of you mentioned being from Puerto Rico, and maybe how does that influence the music and the instruments and things that you play? Maybe we can start with.
I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and music has always been a part of our lives. We were raised in church predominantly, going to church, playing in church, a lot of church music. But when you're of the culture, you get this everywhere else. You get this at your tia's house or your grandmother's house, and it's just kind of everywhere. We grew up playing music, and kind of like bonded through music as well.
Yeah. So when I was more small, like I used to play first. I used to play cans.
Oh yeah, the
I used
soda
to play
cans.
With the cans, and then from there, my mom be like, "Man, he's gonna be a musico, how you say it?
Yeah,
a musician." And and then she start buying me bongose, then conga, then timbale, then drums, and then I started to jam a lot in my church, and now I'm getting more professionally on drums. So yeah.
So my parents are originally from. It used to be called the Soviet Union. They're from a country called Uzbekistan. Some of you may know Uzbekistan through Borat. which is Kazakhstan, which is nearby. So being raised with immigrant parents, I was always exposed to different musics, especially from an Eastern kind of format. You know, whether it was from the Middle East, Afghanistan or Persia, or even Uzbek music. There was always many combinations of lutes and many combinations of violin music, microtonal music. So growing around that really inspired me to explore the sonic hedgeway of what can be done on music. And then when I got older, obviously, I was born here. I ventured into the blues, to rock, metal, all the Western genres, and then here we are at the culmination of what is the moment of now, mixing them.
When was the Electric Sound Collective created?
Electric Sound Collective was born in September 2024 of last year. We all knew each other. We were in many different circles that had kind of come together and converged here and there, and we came together during the formation, and we wanted to play. We didn't know where, but we wanted to play. We didn't want to pay $3,000 for a space just so that we could play and go home, but we wanted to play, and we wanted to be impactful, because obviously each one of us are very involved with our communities and within our social groups. So this is around the time when the war in Palestine happened, is still going on, and the war in Ukraine started, and so there was this purpose of like, we want to play, and we know what music does for people and how it uplifts people. And there was a cause which we title as Play for Peace, because
there wasn't a whole lot of peace happening in the world.
That part, so when we came together and we started to play, at first it was just experimental of like, well, learning our way around, because we didn't know if it was legal. We didn't care.
Yeah, we really didn't know. We were just taking a chance.
We were taking a chance.
So you were playing everywhere?
Illegally everywhere.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, we started to see the effects of people. We started to see how people would smile and how they would brighten up their day. As you would watch a person, I don't know if my hand is in camera, but you would watch a person come from 20 or 30 feet over there with a frown on their face, and as they get closer, there's something that melts that frown away, and now suddenly they're smiling with their eyes, and you can see the crease of the crow's feet. It's so that's something that we became very interested to see in all things, being intentional, being purposeful, and being peaceful with our creation.
I was curious about how would they describe the sound of their music?
I think that's a beautiful question, and I think that each one of us can answer it, because each one of us are having a different experience on that. So I'll lead the way, and I'll just say, I don't believe in genres. I don't believe in borders. I don't believe in divisive identities. To divide music into a genre is to say that brick in that wall is the only brick that you fit into. I could say that Electric Sound Collective is new wave because we draw from all different parts of the world, whether it's Middle East or the blues from New Orleans or jazz. It's all on the table. I like to tell people, everything from the birds singing to the bums fighting over change, that's all music, and it can all be used as a conduit for expression. So yeah, I would say new wave.
And Manifest and Jonathan, how do you feel about that as well?
I'd say that, yeah, I would say new wave. I would say it's very different. At the same time, we do show up sometimes and play some let's just say some covers, you know, and really just try to find a way to also connect with the crowd and pull them in so they can, you know, then receive the frequency and the vibrations of like maybe Larry On's song, you know, Bird in the Wind, right? You know, or my song Believe, right? Yeah, these are the reasons why. Yeah.
I like jazz and pop and Latin. So I like more Latin because I know more of, you know, like salsa and stuff on the drums, and I always played on the timbales, the congas, and the bongos, and you know that right there, it can't, you know, like, in my mind, it's like salsa all day. You know what I mean? It's just playing songo. So, yeah. So,
yeah, he does bring a lot more of a Latin fusion, right?
Fusion.
Yeah, like Latin fusion.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was best if we each answer it, because each one of us brings a different element. If you're making a soup, you can't just make soup out of one ingredient, unless you're making tomato soup. So each one of us has a different ingredient that we bring to the mix, and all the musicians that have ever worked with us, on top of the triumvirate, they bring their own sound and voice to it. It's like an orchestra. So, yeah.
You were very open to collaborating with other musicians, as long as they understand to honor the music, right?
Yeah.
Like that's our focus. A lot of times we find ourselves, you know, in spaces where they're playing music and, you know, where we have maybe a jam session, and, you know, some people are just not mindful of how whatever they're contributing, how that's taking the music and taking it a particular direction, right? So now we question, where are you taking us, right? We play for peace very intentionally. You know, we play for peace, you know, to not only play for peace, but to create peace within ourselves. Because if we're at peace, then the frequency that we push out is just automatically going to be of peace.
I love what you said about that, and also when you talked about the origins of the collective, how it came out of this time where there was a lot of things going on, a lot of things happening, and sort of creating the collective as a response to that. So I would love to hear about maybe the emotions or messages within your music, within maybe the songs and the across different genres that you play. What is really important about the messaging behind your music to your audience?
Start off with the notion that playing for peace isn't about playing the instrument. It's about playing, right? When you see a child playing with their toys, or a cat playing with its tail, or a dog, you can't help but feel that. You know, it's this universal currency of energy that you see. This being is in the moment, curious, right? So that is the origin of that word, play. Because when we play, we ascend, right? You can't be mad and play at the same time, right? So if you're playing your instrument, you're getting curious with it. For me, it's always, how can I get curious, and how can I do the most? What's the weirdest place I can put my hand on the guitar? Will that work? And this guy knows. He'll be shooting me looks. I'll be like, that's the way. Let's get curious, you know? It's something about getting curious that really inspires you to open. I'll leave it to y'all.
I would say it's the key that we use to open the door, right? It's an opportunity to share parts of our souls and our hearts that sometimes words don't really get to express or explain, right? So we use melody, right? We use the flow, right? We use drumming, the bass line, right? And the way that I play, I like to tap into this part of music that's kind of like just comes from the body, like almost like as opposed to playing the bass as a guitar player, I'm playing the bass as a percussionist. And I want to create this sort of like flow, not only for me, not only for the people that are like being served by this music, but for the drummer, right? Because the drummer gets to now hear it and say, oh, hold on, what you did? I got you. And he just adds to it and explores with it. Same thing with the guitar, we create open doors for each other to be able to express this trueness within ourselves. If there's one place where you cannot lie, is in the music. So if you play with us, whatever's coming from you, that is the truest part of you. We can feel it. It's a frequency, it's a vibration. So when we move in that space, we're moving in much more consciousness in what we're doing and how we want to affect our environments and how that's going to affect us. Because that's what happens, right? We sometimes think that we're moving around and we're not affecting the environment. We're affecting the environment by just existing. So what does your existence mean? What is it? What is the frequency that you're vibrating at? And we attempt to really be conscious of that, because we can't say that we're here seeking perfection, because we're not. We're seeking exploration.
Being a New Yorker myself, I just had to ask, how does the New York City environment influence their music?
I would say we got all the genres here. We got all the flavor here. You could just walk down the block and hear just like multiple different types of music. You can go to Washington Square Park and see a whole bunch of bands playing. Like the jazz band, the guitar players that pop out of nowhere sometimes, right? It's just so much culture and so much flavor that comes from being in New York City. And it just gives you an opportunity to explore that more, like just easier, because I would say, I was explaining to you, I went back home to Puerto Rico, and there were some moments that it was a little bit challenging for me to like connect in the way that I connect, out here. It's just a little bit easier, you don't even need a car. Out there, you may need a car to move around and connect with, some of the different environments, but out here, we get an opportunity to kind of like take the train. We can go, anywhere in New York City. And don't get me wrong, I love, going back home and finding new ways to connect with the music and the art and artists that is a part of me. At the same time, I would say that New York City has given me an opportunity to explore music in a way that I feel like probably could have been much more challenging in other places, like when I lived in Florida or in Texas, that it's just the predicaments are different. So
yeah, it's groovy living in modern day Babylon. You could eat Chinese food one day and Mexican food the next day. This place is such a is this a PG show?
You can say what
This
you
want
to say.
Fucking interesting equation, because
why are you being so nice?
It's my New Year's resolution. It's the only place where you're in the motherboard of the system. Really, if you think about it, this is the motherboard of the system, right? The whole country, the stock exchange is like within fucking breathing distance. This is the only place where you can find like Manifest was saying, 4 different guitarists playing 4 different genres and 4 different keys at
In the
once.
same song. In the same song.
You know, this is the only place where you can do that. You know, this is the only place where you can meet musicians. Like, the world is huge, but the community's small.
Yeah.
Your karma follows you there, right? So if you do some interesting things, predicaments in one community, you already know that your street credit is not gonna be great in the other community because everybody knows. So it's something about living on top of each other that really does help the spirit thrive.
It's the access.
The access.
You know, like there's certain places that we go, and you know, like it's obviously different, right? And it's its own thing. There's nothing bad and good. It has nothing to do with that. It's just these opportunities that you get in New York City that just seem to be just a bit different, you know, in other places. You know, it seems like sometimes you have to work a little harder to try to just have this, like even us, right? Like having this interview and like, you know, like we were playing in the park and you came up to me, right? We were talking for a little while, and you know, a year later, almost a year later, you know, but that's the beautiful part of it, right? Where it's like, you know, you're maybe what 25 minutes away from me, you know, that access it's different.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you have access to this, and then tomorrow you have access to another thing, or it's amazing, you know, it just gives you, you know, it makes it possible for you to be as creative as possible.
At the same time, to add on and give the other side of the flavor.
There's always, you know,
There's always a balance. This is what we do. This is Manifest, Larion's dynamic. We always give both sides of the spectrum. New York does not have much nature in it. We belong in nature as a species. There is not too many trees. If you go up to New Jersey, for example, there's more trees. The schools are defunding creative programs. So the children, the next generation, is not learning how to adequately express itself.
Yes.
It's not around creation, which is nature. So we have a society of depressed adults, human grown-up children who don't know how to excuse me, I'm getting too fast. They don't know how to express themselves. They slip into depression and they continue to feed the system, which is ran by pharmaceutical companies to sell them antidepressants. The effect of suppression is depression. The antidote is expression. That is why we do what we do. So there's access, but there's also not too much access. How many kids have we? How many kids have we? You know,
kids, young adults, elders. I'm talking about like
always
the full spectrum, and that's why we kept doing it,
Yeah.
because this is the result. We kept seeing something happen every single time. We kept, you know, we even have a moment where someone came up to Larion and, well, we have 2 moments. Someone gave him that necklace while he was playing. He's like, no, keep playing. You know, like gave him the necklace, blessed him with the necklace. And in that same park,
It's a $400 necklace.
yeah, in that same park, Larion got to speak to someone that was going through some tough challenges, you know, around that time period for their life.
They were gonna end their subscription to life right there and then, but decided to walk by that park that day, and because they heard the music, didn't. That's why we do it. The world doesn't need the next top band. America needs leaders that are showing people that it's okay to create. It's okay to step on the street. It's okay to risk, God forbid, looking stupid in front of strangers in order to create. That's what you do.
If you would like to follow Electric Sound Collective's music and learn more, here is where you can find them.
Follow us at ESC NYC 23 and Instagram. You can follow me personally at Tainovision, TAINOVISION, and also Manifest the Artist, written out exactly like that on Instagram, both on Instagram.
You can follow me on Larry on Music. That's LARION Music. And you follow Mr. Jonathan here at
Jonathan McCardles _ through Groove 37.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
That's awesome.
Yes.